She was thrown from Blood Moon Cliff in labor as a sacrifice, until the Alpha King saved them. Leora stumbled along the narrow path, her swollen belly heavy with the life inside her. Her breath came in shallow gasps, each step a battle against exhaustion and fear. Behind her the villagers followed, faces pale with reverence and terror, carrying torches that flickered like dying stars. They called her a chosen one, a sacrifice. "No," Leora whispered, clutching her stomach. Her child kicked inside, small yet insistent, a heartbeat of defiance against the cruel fate imposed upon them. "Please, not this way." But the villagers did not hear her plea. The high priest, a tall man draped in crimson and silver robes, raised his hands to the blood-red moon. His voice was cold, distant, and final. "The curse will not be broken without this offering," he intoned. "The blood moon demands it. The child will decide our fate. Only the spirits may judge their lives." Leora's knees buckled. The cliff stretched before her, jagged and unforgiving, and below lay the dark valley shrouded in mist. One false step could end them both. She tried to move backward, tried to reason, tried to make them see her humanity, but none of it mattered. Suddenly, strong hands seized her arms. The villager's grip was merciless, dragging her toward the edge. Panic clawed at her chest as she struggled, her cries drowned by the wind. "No, my child, please, I beg you." The high priest stepped closer, chanting in a language older than memory. The villagers obeyed, shoving Leora forward. Her heels slipped on the wet stone and she teetered on the brink of the abyss. And then she fell. Time stretched. The wind whipped around her like a living thing, carrying her scream into the night. Her body hurtled toward the valley below, heart hammering, eyes wide with terror. She braced herself, expecting death, but the world did not end. A shadow lunged from the mist, a form that moved faster than any mortal could. Strong arms wrapped around her, breaking the fall, catching her in a grip that was both terrifying and protective. She cried out again, startled, and looked up into the face of her savior. The Alpha King. Kale's presence was overwhelming. His eyes, silver and sharp as moonlight on ice, scanned the cliff and the pursuing villagers. His dark hair whipped in the wind and his armor glinted with a strange, otherworldly light. He set her down gently, yet every movement radiated strength and authority. "You're safe for now," he said, his voice deep, resonant, commanding yet calm. "Do not struggle." Leora trembled, gripping her stomach as her tears fell freely. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the roaring wind. "I am Kale," he replied, his gaze turning toward the cliff's edge. "Alpha of the Hidden Valley, you should not have been brought here. They would have killed you both." They said," Leora's voice cracked. "They said the blood moon, it would take my child if I survived." Kale's eyes narrowed. "The curse is old and cruel, but it is not absolute. Come, we must leave this place before they return." He lifted her with ease, holding her close to his chest. Every step he took down the jagged path seemed effortless, as if the stones themselves parted for him. Leora's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the raw intensity of his presence. The valley below stretched wide, dark, and mysterious. A river wound through it, silver in the moonlight. Trees twisted like ancient sentinels and mist clung to their roots. In the distance, a fortress of black stone rose from the earth, its towers cutting into the night sky. It was both beautiful and forbidding, bathed in the light of the blood moon. Kale set her down at the fortress's gates. Massive doors, carved with symbols she did not recognize, swung open as if sensing his approach. Inside, the hall was vast, echoing with the sound of flowing water and whispers of unseen spirits. Leora's eyes widened at the sight. It was a place that felt alive, a place where mortal laws did not apply. "You are safe here," Kale said again, his tone softer now, yet firm. "No one may touch you. The child you carry, it is important, more important than you know." Leora sank to her knees, the weight of exhaustion finally overtaking her. She touched her stomach, feeling the small, warm presence of her child. I don't understand. Why help me?" Kale looked away for a moment, his jaw tight. "Because life is worth protecting, and because your fate may be tied to mine and to the future of both our worlds." Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. The idea of destiny, of prophecy, of powers beyond her understanding, terrified her as much as it fascinated her. She had been born into a world that demanded her death. Yet here she was, alive, because of a man she barely knew, in a fortress she could barely comprehend. Kale gestured for her to follow. He led her deeper into the citadel, through halls lit by glowing crystals and along corridors where shadows seemed to move of their own accord. Every step she took made her more aware of the contrast between her vulnerability and his strength. Every glance revealed the weight of responsibility he bore, the control he exercised over life and death itself. Finally, they arrived at a room at the heart of the fortress. It was simple yet elegant, with high windows that let in moonlight and a small hearth that glowed with a steady flame. Kale motioned for her to sit. "Rest," he said. "You are safe here. No one may harm you." Leora sank into the chair, feeling the tension in her body unwind just slightly. "But my child, what will happen to them?" Kale knelt beside her, his silver eyes meeting hers. "I will protect your child as I would my own. They are special, marked by fate. The blood moon may have claimed their lives, but it did not. And it never will, not while I stand." She wanted to ask more, to understand the strange and terrifying world she had been thrust into, but her body refused to obey. Exhaustion pulled her under, and her last thoughts before sleep claimed her were of the man beside her, dangerous, commanding, yet somehow comforting. Outside, the wind continued to howl across the cliffs, carrying with it whispers of the villagers' curses, the blood moon's judgment, and the old legends that had governed her people for centuries. Inside, Leora slept, unaware that the night had only just begun, and that the child within her was destined to change the fate of two worlds. And in the shadows of the fortress, Kale stood watch, a silent sentinel against the darkness. His mind was a storm of questions, calculations, and cautious hope. The blood moon had brought chaos, but in saving her, he had also ignited a chain of events that neither of them could yet imagine. The distant howls of unseen beasts echoed through the valley, a reminder that the world outside was cruel and merciless. But within the walls of the fortress, life clung stubbornly to the fragile warmth of mother and child. Kale's thoughts lingered on the prophecy whispered by his elders, of a child born under the blood moon, a child who would either unite or destroy kingdoms, clans, and species. He did not know yet which path awaited them. But one truth was clear: he would not allow death to claim them tonight, not Leora, not the child. And as the first light of the blood moon shimmered on the fortress walls, a soft, almost imperceptible flicker of silver traced through the valley below, a hint that the child within Leora had already begun to awaken to their own mysterious power. Outside, the villagers returned to their homes, believing the sacrifice complete. Yet the blood moon watched silently, waiting, patient and eternal. Within the fortress, a new chapter had begun, one of survival, of discovery, and of the slow, delicate shaping of bonds that neither time nor fear could break. But as the night deepened, Kale could not shake the feeling that danger still lurked closer than he realized, and that the events set in motion on the cliff's edge were only the beginning of a story written in blood, moonlight, and destiny. Hook cliffhanger. Somewhere beyond the fortress walls, eyes gleamed in the darkness and whispers of the old curse stirred. Leora and her child were safe, for now, but the blood moon was far from finished. The fortress was alive with shadows. Its black stone walls held secrets older than any mortal could imagine, and the air itself seemed to pulse with power. Leora woke to the soft glow of moonlight spilling through the tall windows. Her body ached, but more than that, her mind raced with questions she could barely form. Kale sat across the room, silent and still, like a guardian carved from the night itself. His eyes reflected the silver light of the blood moon, sharp and unwavering. Leora could not tell if he was watching her or listening to the fortress, but the effect was the same. She felt the weight of his attention pressing gently against her chest. "You should rest," Kale said finally, his voice low and commanding. "Your strength will be needed soon." I don't even know where I am," Leora whispered, her hands unconsciously protecting her swollen belly. "This place, it feels alive, terrible and beautiful all at once." Kale nodded, as if he understood more than he let on. "This fortress is part of my clan. It has stood here for centuries, guarding the valley and the secrets within. Few mortals have ever set foot here, fewer survive when they do." Leora's breath caught. "And yet you saved me." "Why?" Kale's jaw tightened. "Because life is sacred. And because the child you carry, it is part of a prophecy. The blood moon marked you both, but not for death. It marked you for a choice, one that will shape the fate of both our worlds." Leora swallowed hard. The words were heavy with meaning she could barely understand. She had been told all her life that the blood moon demanded sacrifice, that her child was cursed before it was even born. And yet here she was, safe, in the arms of a man who seemed more spirit than mortal. "Prophecy?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What does it mean? What will happen to my child?" Kale rose and walked to the window, his gaze scanning the valley below. The wind tugged at his dark hair, and his cloak fluttered like a shadow freed from chains. "The child will have a power the world has not seen for centuries," he said. "It is not fully awake yet, but soon, very soon, you will understand why I could not let the blood moon claim you." Leora shivered, not from the cold, but from the weight of his words. Her child was more than a life in her womb. It was a force that could shift the balance of kingdoms, clans, and spirits alike. Kale turned back to her, and for a moment the sternness in his eyes softened. "You must trust me," he said, "for your sake and for the child's. Trust is the only way to survive what is coming." Leora wanted to believe him, but fear still clung to her like a shadow. I don't know if I can. Everything I've known has been a lie. My people, they tried to kill me." Kale knelt beside her. "Then let me show you the truth of this world," he said. "Let me teach you how to survive here. Not all who walk under the blood moon are enemies." Over the next days, Leora discovered the hidden power of Kale's domain. The fortress was more than stone. It was alive with the energy of the earth and the spirits of his ancestors. Hallways shifted when no one was looking. Rivers of silver water ran through hidden channels, glowing faintly in the dark. Shadows whispered secrets to those who would listen, and the wind seemed to carry messages from places far beyond the valley. Kale taught her to move silently through the corridors, to sense the presence of spirits, and to understand the natural magic that flowed through the fortress. Leora was a quick learner, though every lesson reminded her of her own vulnerability. Kale's training was strict yet patient. There was no malice in his guidance, only the unyielding expectation that she survive for herself and for the child she carried. As the days passed, their relationship shifted in subtle ways. Leora began to see Kale not just as a savior, but as a being of deep strength and honor. His presence was both terrifying and comforting, and Kale, in turn, observed her with a growing sense of awe. She was fragile, yes, but also strong and determined. There was courage in her fear, and he respected it. One night, under the crimson glow of the blood moon, Kale took Leora to the edge of the fortress. The wind tore at their cloaks, and the valley below seemed endless, dark, and alive. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked. "The child, it is waking, the power is stirring." Leora clutched her belly, feeling the subtle tremors beneath her hands. "I feel something, but I don't understand it." "You will," Kale said. "Soon the child will speak without words. You must be ready to listen." The moonlight glinted off his eyes, silver and piercing. Leora realized then that Kale was more than a protector. He was a guide, a sentinel, and perhaps even a part of her child's destiny. Her heart skipped as she met his gaze, feeling an unfamiliar warmth. Fear, awe, and a strange longing mingled together in a way that made her pulse quicken. Days turned into nights in the fortress, and Leora's training grew more intense. She learned to sense danger before it arrived, to move with the shadows, and to trust the whispers of spirits. Each lesson drew her closer to Kale, not just physically, but emotionally. There was a tension in the air between them, unspoken yet undeniable, as if the forces that had brought them together were shaping not only their destinies but their hearts. But the peace of the fortress was fragile. One evening, while Leora practiced moving silently along the halls, she caught sight of a figure watching from the shadows outside. She froze, heart hammering. Kale appeared behind her, silent and commanding. "You've been observed," he said, his tone grave. "The Blood Moon's curse is older than our memories. Those who wish to claim the child are not idle, they watch, they wait." Leora's stomach tightened with fear. "Who are they?" Kale's eyes darkened. "Your people. Those who once betrayed my clan. They will not stop until the child is theirs or dead. You must understand, your child is the key to a balance that has been broken for centuries." The weight of his words pressed down on her, heavier than any physical burden. She realized that survival depended not just on her body, but on her mind, her courage, and her trust in Kale. In the nights that followed, the fortress became a sanctuary and a prison. Leora could not leave, and she did not wish to. She was drawn to Kale, to his strength and his wisdom, and yet the fear of losing the child, or of failing him, kept her cautious. One night, as they sat by the glowing river within the fortress, Kale spoke softly, almost as if confessing a secret. "I have lived for centuries, guarding this valley, but never have I felt the pull of destiny like this. You and your child, you have changed that. I will protect you no matter the cost." Leora looked up at him, heart pounding. The words stirred something inside her, a mixture of fear and hope. I don't know if I can trust anyone," she admitted. "Not after everything." Kale's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Trust is a choice," he said, "and sometimes it is the only path to survival. You can choose to fight alone, or you can let me fight with you." A soft wind swept through the chamber, carrying the scent of night flowers from the valley below. Leora felt the truth of his words deep in her bones. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe that together they could protect the child, and perhaps even shape the fate of their world. But just as the thought took root, a distant sound shattered the calm, a howl, unlike any she had heard before. It echoed through the fortress, low and terrible, filled with malice and hunger. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to twist and lengthen, reaching toward them like living fingers. Kale rose immediately, his body coiled with tension. "They are coming," he said, his voice sharp, deadly, "and they will not wait until the dawn." Leora clutched her belly, fear and adrenaline surging through her. She had been safe. She had believed in the fortress, in Kale, in the protective magic of this hidden world. But now the danger was real, immediate, and unstoppable. Kale moved toward the window, scanning the valley. The moonlight revealed movement, figures slipping silently through the forest, cloaked in darkness, their intentions clear and violent. The blood moon reflected off their weapons, a warning of what was to come. "They want the child," Kale said, his jaw tight. "And they will not leave until they have it." Leora's breath caught. She realized then that trust was no longer optional. The child's life, her own life, and the fragile bond between her and Kale depended on it. She met his gaze, the silver light of the blood moon reflecting in both of their eyes, and nodded. "I trust you," she whispered. Kale's expression softened just slightly before hardening again. "Good," he said. "Because the night is only beginning, and we must be ready to fight for what is ours, by blood, by bond, and by destiny." Outside, the wind carried the howl again, closer this time. Shadows moved among the trees, and the fortress seemed to hold its breath. Within its walls, Leora and Kale prepared for the storm that would change everything, testing courage, loyalty, and the growing, unspoken bond between them. The blood moon watched silently, crimson and eternal, as the first threads of destiny began to weave themselves around a mother, a child, and the Alpha King who had saved them. Hook cliffhanger. In the darkness beyond the fortress, figures moved with deadly precision. The blood moon's curse was stirring again, and the forces that had tried to claim the child were closing in faster than either Leora or Kale could anticipate. The fortress was tense, its corridors echoing with the quiet steps of shadows and the distant roar of the wind outside. Leora's body trembled as she sat by the glowing river within the citadel, clutching her swollen belly. Every pulse of the child inside her sent shivers through her, a reminder that time was no longer her ally. The labor had begun, subtle at first, then growing with a rhythm that could not be ignored. Kale was beside her in an instant, his presence commanding yet tender. He knelt, placing a hand gently on her arm. "Breathe, Leora," he said. "The child is waking. You must stay strong." I don't know if I can," Leora whispered, fear flickering in her eyes. She had survived the fall from the cliff, the hatred of her people, the journey through Kale's dangerous fortress. But this was different. The child's life was now directly tied to her own strength, and every instinct screamed in panic. "You can," Kale said firmly. "I will not let anything harm you or the child. Trust me as you said you would." The fortress seemed to hold its breath, the shadows twisting as if in anticipation. The blood moon cast a crimson glow through the high windows, bathing the chamber in an eerie yet beautiful light. It touched Leora's skin, her hair, the water in the river, and even Kale's dark armor, giving everything an otherworldly shimmer. Minutes stretched into hours, though time itself seemed suspended. Leora's pain grew, but with Kale's guidance, his hand steady, his voice calm, she focused on each breath, each moment, each surge of life within her. She realized then that the fortress, the blood moon, and even Kale himself were more than protectors. They were witnesses to the miracle unfolding. Finally, with a cry that mingled exhaustion and triumph, the child emerged. Leora collapsed against Kale, drained yet filled with awe. The baby's small form was perfect, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Its eyes opened, shimmering silver, reflecting the blood moon's crimson glow, hinting at the power that lay dormant within. Kale cradled the child carefully, marveling at the delicate life in his arms. "It is done," he said softly. "You are safe, both of you, for now." Leora reached out, touching the small hand of her child. Tears blurred her vision. They are alive. My child is alive." Kale's gaze swept over the horizon beyond the fortress, sharp and alert. "Alive, yes, but not safe for long. Those who sought to claim the child will not give up. Your people, your family, they will come." Leora's heart sank. She had believed that her child's birth marked the end of her suffering, but Kale's words reminded her that danger was far from over. We have to leave," she asked, her voice trembling. Kale nodded. "Soon, but first you must regain your strength. The child's power will not remain hidden forever, and those who chase it will come with a force you cannot yet imagine." Days passed in the fortress, and while Leora recovered, Kale trained her in subtle ways. How to sense the child's aura, how to move quietly even while carrying a newborn, how to trust her instincts as the life inside her grew stronger with each day. Each lesson was a reminder that the blood moon's curse was not merely superstition. It was real, ancient, and powerful. Then, one night, emissaries arrived at the gates of the fortress. Leora had thought her family's betrayal had been centuries old, that the world outside would not dare approach Kale's stronghold. She was wrong. The doors shuddered under a coordinated knock. Kale's expression hardened. "They have come," he said. "And they bring both threats and lies." Through the crimson light of the blood moon, shadows moved across the outer walls. Figures cloaked in dark robes, carrying symbols of the old curse, had come to claim the child. They did not speak, yet their intent was clear in every movement. Leora felt a chill run down her spine. The blood moon, she realized, had marked them all, the child, her, and now this confrontation, as if the night itself demanded this test. Kale stood at the gates, arms crossed, his figure framed by the crimson glow. "I warned you," he called. "Leave now or face the consequences." One of the emissaries stepped forward, revealing a familiar face to Leora, her cousin, a man she had trusted as a child. His eyes were cold, hard, and filled with the same obsession for the curse that had driven her people for generations. "The child is ours," he said, voice steady and cruel. "The blood moon demands it. Return it, Leora, or all will suffer." Leora's stomach twisted with anger and fear. Her family, her own blood, had betrayed her again, but Kale was at her side, unwavering. "You will not harm her or the child," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "Not while I live." The emissaries laughed, a sound that sent a shiver through the fortress. "You think you can defy fate, Alpha King? The curse is older than you, older than your clan. Surrender or witness its wrath." Kale's eyes glowed silver under the blood moon. "I do not serve the curse," he said. "I serve life, and I will protect them with everything I have." The emissaries stepped closer, weapons glinting, shadows twisting with unnatural energy. Leora felt her pulse quicken. Her child stirred within her, and a strange warmth spread through her, a connection she did not yet understand. The baby's aura pulsed faintly, silver and red, a heartbeat in sync with the blood moon. Kale's hands moved in a blur, summoning shadows that twisted into forms of wolves, spectral guardians of the fortress. They leapt, teeth bared, and the emissaries staggered back, unprepared for the supernatural force that met them. Leora's fear shifted into awe. The child, Kale, the fortress. They were all connected, bound by something greater than mere chance. She touched the baby's hand again, feeling the faint pulse of energy, and realized that this life was not merely fragile, it was powerful. The emissaries regrouped, chanting in the old language, trying to summon the curse to force the child into their control. The shadows grew darker, more menacing. Kale stepped forward, his presence a shield of silver light. "You will not take them," he said. "Not now, not ever." And then the blood moon flared, bathing the valley in crimson fire. The child cried, a sound that seemed to echo through the fortress, through the valley and beyond, shaking the earth itself. The emissaries faltered, their spell breaking against the raw, untamed power of the child. Kale caught the baby in his arms and stepped closer to Leora. "We leave," he said. "Now, there is no time for hesitation." Leora nodded, adrenaline surging through her veins. She wrapped her cloak around the baby, feeling the warmth, the pulse, the life that defied death itself. Together, they followed Kale through hidden passages, through halls that seemed to bend and shift to their passage, until they reached the outer edge of the fortress. The night outside was alive with danger. Figures moved in the shadows, but Kale's command over the elements, the wolves, and the fortress itself kept them at bay. Still, the journey ahead was treacherous. The valley below was dark, twisted with cliffs, rivers, and forests that held creatures of the blood moon's choosing. Kale's hand brushed against Leora's as he helped her descend a rocky slope. She looked at him, fear and gratitude mingling in her eyes. "I don't know how we'll survive," she whispered. Kale's silver eyes softened just slightly. "We survive because we must," he said. "Because the child is not meant for the curse but for something greater, and because I will not let harm come to either of you." As they moved deeper into the forest, the wind carried whispers, old spirits warning or perhaps guiding them. Leora's heart ached with every step, yet it also swelled with determination. She had been saved once, and now she would fight to protect this child, to trust Kale, and to defy the fate that had once seemed inevitable. The blood moon hung high, crimson and eternal, illuminating the path ahead. Danger waited, yes, but so did destiny. And Leora, with Kale by her side and her child in her arms, felt the first stirrings of hope. But even as they pressed forward, shadows moved silently behind the trees. The emissaries had not given up. The blood moon's curse was patient, eternal, and relentless. And it would not rest until it claimed what it believed was rightfully its own. Hook cliffhanger. In the depths of the forest, eyes glimmered in the darkness. The child's power had awakened, but so had an even older, more dangerous force. Leora, Kale, and the newborn were far from safe, and the true test of trust, courage, and destiny had only just begun. The forest was alive with danger. Shadows twisted between the trees, and the blood moon cast its crimson glow over the valley. Leora held her child tightly, feeling its heartbeat like a drum against her chest. Kale moved beside her, every step confident, every motion purposeful. They were hunted, yes, but they were not defenseless. The emissaries had pursued them relentlessly, and now the final confrontation loomed. Leora's heart pounded, not from fear alone, but from the weight of destiny pressing on her shoulders. The child inside her arms was not just a life, it was the key to breaking a centuries-old curse, to ending the cycle of fear and death that had haunted both their worlds. Kale stopped at the edge of a small clearing, his eyes scanning the shadows. "They are close," he said, voice low but unwavering. "The choice you make now will determine everything. Stand with me and we protect the child. Doubt me and all is lost." Leora nodded, gripping the child tightly. She had doubted before, she had feared. But now she knew what mattered most: life, trust, and the bond forming between them. The emissaries stepped into the clearing, cloaked in darkness, their eyes glowing faintly with the influence of the blood moon. Their leader, her cousin, raised his hands, chanting in the ancient tongue. Shadows gathered at his feet, curling like serpents and coiling toward Leora and Kale. Kale stepped forward, his presence like a wall of silver light. "You will not take them," he said, his voice carrying over the forest. "This ends tonight." The emissaries advanced, but Kale's command of the forest, the wolves, and the spirits within the fortress extended into the woods. Trees shifted, roots rose from the ground, and spectral wolves lunged from the shadows, protecting the mother and child. Leora felt the power of the forest in her bones, a strange energy connecting her to Kale and the child. Suddenly the child stirred, its eyes glowing silver and red, reflecting the blood moon. A pulse of energy radiated outward, pushing back the shadows and sending the emissaries stumbling. Leora realized with awe that her child's power was not dormant, it had awakened to protect them. Kale glanced at her, a small smile breaking through his usual stoic expression. "The child is stronger than we imagined," he said. "Trust in it, trust in us, and we will survive." Leora took a deep breath, feeling a surge of courage. "We fight together," she said, "all of us." The emissaries advanced again, chanting louder, trying to bind the child's power to the old curse, but Leora and Kale moved as one. Kale's hands formed shapes in the air, summoning spectral forces and controlling the forest. Leora felt herself connected to the energy, her own fear transforming into strength. Together, Mother, Child, and Alpha King became a single force of light against the darkness. The emissaries faltered. The ground beneath them shifted and cracked. Roots and vines rose from the earth, holding them in place. The child's eyes glowed brighter, pulsing with the rhythm of the blood moon. Leora felt a warmth spread through her, a protective shield woven by the bond between them. Her cousin, realizing the battle was lost, stepped forward, desperation in his eyes. "It's too late. You cannot defy the blood moon." Kale's voice was calm, deadly. "The blood moon does not command me. Life does." He stepped closer, the aura of power around him growing stronger, silver light radiating from his form. And life chooses its own path. With a sudden movement, Leora extended her hand toward the emissaries, feeling the energy of the child surge through her. A wave of silver and crimson light shot outward, surrounding the attackers. They screamed not in pain but in fear and awe as the power of the newborn reflected their own intentions back at them. The blood moon flared brightly, illuminating the entire clearing. For a moment, the forest was silent. Then one by one the emissaries dropped to their knees, defeated not by force alone, but by the undeniable truth that the child was no ordinary life. It was the key to ending the curse. Kale took Leora's hand, holding it tightly. "It is done," he said. "The curse has been broken." Leora looked down at the child, who gazed up at her with eyes full of light and promise. Tears filled her eyes as she realized the weight of what had just happened. They had survived, yes, but more than that, they had changed fate itself. The forest around them seemed to exhale, shadows retreating, the wind softening. The blood moon's crimson glow shifted to silver, bathing the clearing in gentle light. It was no longer a harbinger of death, but a symbol of renewal and hope. Kale held her close, his voice soft now, almost tender. "You have done more than survive, Leora. You have helped shape the future. Your courage, your trust, it has rewritten what the blood moon demanded." Leora rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I couldn't have done it alone," she whispered. You saved us again and again." Kale's silver eyes softened. "We saved each other," he said. "And this child is the bridge between our worlds, a life born of courage and trust, not fear and sacrifice." For the first time, Leora allowed herself to feel the depth of her feelings for him. The fear and tension that had defined their relationship were replaced by something stronger, love born in the midst of darkness, tested by danger, and strengthened by shared survival. They stayed in the clearing until the first light of dawn touched the forest. The child slept peacefully in Leora's arms, and the world felt for a moment perfectly still. Kale's hand rested on her back, steady, protective, and warm. But even as the sun rose, painting the valley with light, Kale's instincts remained sharp. The blood moon had been broken, but the world was still dangerous. Forces beyond their understanding still lingered, watching, waiting. "You are not alone," Kale whispered. "I will protect you and the child no matter what comes, but we must remain vigilant." The shadows never truly vanish. Leora nodded, understanding the truth in his words. She had survived the cliff, the villagers, the curse, and the emissaries. She had faced fear, loss, and the unknown, and she had emerged stronger. Now, with Kale and her child by her side, she knew she could face anything. Days turned into weeks, and the fortress became home for the small family. Leora learned to harness the energy of the child, to understand its mysterious powers, and to navigate the hidden world that Kale ruled with quiet authority. Their bond deepened with each shared moment, small acts of trust, quiet conversations, and the silent understanding of hearts aligned by destiny. Kale, too, changed. His stoic demeanor softened around Leora, his actions guided not only by duty but by a growing affection that he did not hide from the child's presence. Together, they were no longer just protector and survivor. They were a family forged in blood, moonlight, and the trials of fate. One evening, as the sun set and the blood moon prepared to rise once more, Leora stood beside Kale on the cliffs overlooking the valley. The child slept peacefully in her arms, a small bundle of life and hope. "The blood moon will rise again," she said softly. "Will it come for us?" Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, silver light reflecting in his eyes. "It may rise, but it cannot claim what has been protected by courage, love, and trust. We have changed the rules of fate." Leora smiled faintly, leaning into him. "Then we are ready, together." Kale's eyes softened as he kissed the top of her head. "Together," he echoed. And as the blood moon rose, crimson fading to silver once more, a new chapter began. The curse that had haunted generations was no longer an unbreakable chain. It was a reminder of what could be overcome. Life, love, and trust had prevailed. Yet in the distance, among the shadows of the forest, new eyes watched. The blood moon's power was eternal, patient, and relentless. The story of Leora, Kale, and their child was only the beginning of a legend that would echo through the ages. A tale of courage, redemption, and the bond forged in blood and moonlight. For now, though, they stood together, safe in each other's presence, hearts aligned and destinies intertwined. The future awaited, full of promise and challenge, but whatever came, they would face it as one. Hook poetic close. The blood moon glimmered in the sky, crimson turned silver, and Kale whispered to Leora, "The curse could not claim you, only the bond we forged could save us all." Yet beyond the forest, shadows stirred, hinting at new challenges and new legends waiting to be written.